you know, yeah, cool. So how about we take a wee quick look at the charts over here. So that's the chart there. I'll just make it full screen. A couple of quick things to say. We're above the 236. Good one, and we are below the 8-period exponential moving average, or are we? We maybe are just kind of cracking through that at the minute with these 36,000 prices. If we manage to take that out and sustain ourselves, then of course that would look like a nice potential area for us to find a bounce at, with these 3 wicks coming down here and showing us that each and every time we tried to break below the 33,000 area for realsies, we've not managed to do so, indicating that perhaps, you know, we're still in line for more potential upside towards the top. That's where the upside resides after all. Looking over towards the left here, the key area that we were looking to in terms of will we break our previous lows, which was in around about this 32k area, has managed to sustain itself in without being broken. Therefore we can look over here and say this is not being broken on these smaller time frames, etc., and then make little comparisons if we wanted to, like, back over, well, you know, all of the times that we've really had big drawdowns in the prices since, as you can see here, there have been several of them now, not for the most part, to be honest with you, that significant really. But when we look back over here to the August-September drop downs, then what we were looking at along the way was to say, will these lows here manage to stay above these lows over here? On the 4-hour time frame, we didn't have much in the way of, you know, stop off points to look to in terms of in between support and resistance. Same story over here. You can look to these areas and say where we're breaking them or not, but we didn't really take out the key area. Then over here we didn't take out the key area, over here, etc., etc. The story goes on, and there's just this one little bit here, these 2 bitties, or these 3 bitties here along the way, none of which were actually respected in terms of support, and we really covered that in extreme detail, and nobody really truly would have expected to. What do we call that on the channel most of the time? Just flux along the way. So far we've managed to then sustain prices above this area and move towards the top side, taking out the 236 yet again, and things look groovy. If we actually were to have managed to close a few of these 4-hour candles and get a degree of follow through and continuation beyond the 236, then I would be looking down towards 27,000 at sort of the least, or 28,000, and at that stage you're within sniffing distance of the CME gap, and we can see the 50% area here on that Fibonacci lines up with where the bottom of that CME gap would be. If you need to see that for your own eyes, then here you have it over here, and it's about 23,420 or 23,300 or so, or whatever it happens to be in there, somewhere below 24,000 anyhow on the CME chart. Back in this period of price action, there was a big contangled nature on the charts. They were operating at a higher price than the spot prices. As you can see, that's also currently the case, but we're only looking at about $100 up. Actually, I say that right now, it's $150 or $200. It's just gone up. So, you know, actually the CME's looking a bit healthier there right now than they have been for the last week. Jumping back to the charts and then just drawing on. No, we don't need to draw on anything. And by the way, that ambulance or whatever that is outside right now is absolutely annoying to me, probably more annoying to me in honesty than it is to you at home, but I really wish they would learn the rules. I'm going to have to write to the council about this. I'll send them my steak knife in the post. No, I won't. Actually, that's borderline illegal, talking like that. What I wanted to do here was put on a couple of these bigger term moving averages. Oh, it looks like my settings are probably wrong for these. 100 and 200. I want them to be set to 50, and actually, yeah, well, 50 and 200 is what I want, and the style to be that recognizable style, the way that we have them normally on the channel here for folks, with it being something like that and something like that there as well. And close that up and just see that, of course, now here on the 4-hour time frame we are below the 200 simple period moving average, and that has obviously got its own significance to it. The last time that we were below it was over here on the 8th of December, and the prices did go on down and touch the 50 thereafter before going back up the way, and that's not happened over here. Then looking back the way, we didn't actually go down and touch the 50 so much at you know, at the end of November area when we dropped down below the 200 again. Wait a minute, if I got these the wrong way around, I must have them the wrong way. I have them the wrong way around, don't I, ladies and gents? I've been saying that the wrong way around, but the point stands. shakes his head in dismay. Just let me change this back. What are we looking at here? What somebody said. Oh, wow, Marsan, thank you for all the cheese. Well, if are you French, let me know. You are absolutely welcome for the cheese, my friend. Cool. So they're now correctly laid up. Sorry, we are below the 50. That's called the was it Karl Popper? Was that the name of the psychologist? I'm not talking about Rick's son from The Walking Dead in that hilarious video meme. Karl Popper, that the bad lip reading people did on YouTube. If you like Walking Dead and you like funny stuff, then check out bad lip reading on YouTube and their Karl Popper song. No, I'm talking about the psychologist Popper. Was it him or was it anyway, there's this thing where you see a color and you say the wrong thing. That was psychology. It's a thing from psychology in the past. It's got loads of research into it. Anyway, I kind of fooled myself and I called this the 200 simple and called this the 50 because I had the colors the wrong way around, even though that's obviously, obviously the other way around. Anyway, we did come down, touch the 200 there at that point, and when we went past the 50, yada yada. And just looking back the way, occasionally we come below the 50, we generally speaking manage to sustain ourselves when we get these lows. There's question marks happen here where we go on the whole way up, or would we take them back out again? And then we did actually come down and test the 200. So you can think like we broke the 50 here, we didn't test the 200, we came back up. What did we do? We broke the 50 afterwards, then we tested the 200 thereafter, and then continued towards the top side. Well, we broke the 50 here and we haven't tested the 200. Will we be able to take out the 50 simple period moving average, move towards the top side, get some more of that upside in, maybe even more all-time highs, etc, or will we then just poop our pants down? Yesterday I saw Crypto doing a live stream where he had 12,000 viewers on live, and I bet you amongst them there would have been hundreds of people who would have liked vegan cheese, and he was talking about how he thinks this area could be a head and shoulders, and well, I'm going to give him the credit for that idea. There you go. There's me, Rocky Outcrop, giving Crypto credit for an idea. There, is it a perfect head and shoulders? Well, no. Where's my goddamn volume at? Come back. There you go. It's not a perfect head and shoulders, in various different ways of looking at it. For instance, down here, looking at the volume, it doesn't comply with the textbooks, but then what are you going to do? Also, it doesn't look very good for this right hand shoulder and whatever else, but it's an idea, and I'm bringing it to you courtesy of the old Crypto. Now, what else was he talking about really on that live stream, which I could tolerate for a couple of minutes in that period of time when I tuned in just to guffaw at the sheer numbers of people? Was he was talking about there being the potential for an inverse head and shoulder as well. So let's just draw on what he was talking about at the time, and that was his left shoulder, that was his head, this is his right shoulder, this is his other right shoulder, this is the neckline that we're at again kind of now. Yeah, so it failed it failed in the time that he was talking about in terms of it being an inverted head and shoulders. Then of course it failed in terms of him talking about how you could go down past this neckline and break the overall bigger head and shoulders neckline. But we are still, in all fairness to Chris from Crypto, who I regularly describe as being perhaps the nicest guy in techno analysis, it's not happened yet, and it could still be on the cards. It could still be on the cards. If you're looking at that as a measured move, then you could take it from sort of this type of idea and just sort of stick it up there and say it takes you up to all-time highs. You could do it like Crypto did and kind of go for something bigger and whatever else, and maybe take it off log or something and try and get something out of it somehow that makes it look like you're going into all-time highs, like he said on his video, because he was very excited about it. There we go, all-time highs. He was very excited about that. And we've not done it yet, but what does it boil down to regardless of either of those things that we were talking about there? Well, if we could take out the 200 simple period moving average here on the 4-hour time frame, then that would be very good, and we'd be working against this death cross on the left. And of course, so far we're kind of, that's potential to happen, sandwiched in this zone. Clear areas of resistance come in there at 36,800, I suppose, in terms of this time frame on the 1 hour, sorry. And then you could be looking up the way the targets are the same targets we had on the way up. There's something dreadful happening somewhere in the city right now. There's something dreadful happening. That this is a disproportionate amount of sirens that have gone by, and so far we've had the police and ambulances going by outside. It'd be nice to hear a fire engine going by. They would have already have gone by earlier on, so we've got police and ambulances going to a location at the minute in Edinburgh. My thoughts are with them. So anyway, looking here, what we have is this death cross here, and that kind of sums up the story of the inverted head and shoulders potential at this point in time in terms of, you know, the neckline and can we capture it. Then of course kind of failure to do so again is summed up by both the 50 simple here and mostly, you know, this 200 or the 236 Fibonacci retracement point. Targets towards top side include 37,500, you know, the previous all-time highs. This area over on the left, which is like hard to point to, and you think, why is that so hard to point to? It is 40,000. You know, 40,000 is obviously going to be another area to look to. Then beyond, there are other targets. Let's just draw in some brief ones here for us anyway to give the upside targets a thing. I've already gone way beyond the amount of technical analysis I actually wanted to do in terms of today's episode in total now at this point, so that's a shock for everybody, I'm sure. But that would take you up as high as potentially 48,997, let's call it 49,000, and then in all honesty say that, you know, potentially our next target towards the top side remains at 50,000, and we need to bleed our way through this area just now as we experience the top. You know, if it drops down the way, and talk about how there was reasons to be positive, or we experience a continuation towards the top side, and when then when we talk about it again, we can say, oh, this was kind of like how it was in the past, how we had this potential for it to be a topping area. We're going to have to keep our eyes out for it, and we'll talk about all the things we talked about in great detail for the last I don't know what it is now, the last 10 months, I would say, just as a sort of summary. Cool. So there's other things that we could look to. How is this little period here functioning for us to bring it up and show you, you know, that we're not quite in the period at the point where we've taken out this, you know, previous high. So while we look over to the RSI and say, well, we've come up higher than it, that if we do take it out, then you can say that we have, of course, convergence on the charts. If we don't take it out, maybe we've got a bit of the old hidden bearish divergence on the go there. Maybe you'd look at this area and say that this was just a sort of small bounce along the way. This is just the 1 hour time frame after all, and then your eyes would be going back down towards the prize, of course, those levels we already spoke about. In the show, the DMI is showing us that there is, of course, a positive trend there on the 1 hour, as you'd expect to see. That story doesn't obviously is not consistent, where we have a negative trend with strength growing on the 4 hour, and then over towards the 24 hour, you see that we've not actually decided to turn around yet. That's your story there. We have this upward sloping line on the stochastics, which is obviously operating as support there. Then you can see that we've gone past on the 12 hour and it's looking to turn around. On the 4 hour, we just pushed past that point there, and of course, then we could easily turn around at any these zones and then fail to go up towards the top side. But let's pump the video, exactly, Zoner. Let's pump the video up. So yeah, okay, cool. That's more or less it for me. Do you want to have a summary right now? The easiest summary to give is that on these low term time frames, if Bitcoin doesn't manage to get above here, above the sort of 36, if it can't, Bitcoin's looking at 37,500 currently, and it wants to get up towards those areas, but will it be able to do so without another pullback, possibly down towards the 33,500 area in this ascending triangle that we're in currently? If we see some volume coming in right now and push up towards 37,500, we could move on beyond the zone of this where we are, and that might actually even move us up towards even bigger and better things. In fact, the measured move off of this ascending triangle would take us up towards 42,000, 43,000. In terms of just this pattern alone, I would prefer to see it probably go down towards the lower end and then try towards the top side, so that we don't front run it, because when you front run a pattern, often you get a dissatisfying performance from it, which would of course take you in for that textbook 60% movement up there and not quite achieve the highs. Okay, so that's the current summary. If we're able to do so, things look decent in terms of over here in the 24-hour time frame, having not taken out our previous lows. We're above the 236, you know, and that's great. Staying above 33,000 is important. In terms of the broad term perspective, we have a target in mind, and that is of course on the 27th of January 2021 at 16:53 and 17 seconds. What time zone was this in, Zoner, by the way? Wasn't quite sure. Wasn't quite sure what time zone this was that you were referring to earlier on in the world. Was it UT? Did you say it was universal time? Anyway, we're going to have to look out for that. I did it on the charts, so I'm going to assume that it was universal time. So no matter where you are in the world, now you know, and that's of course send